Everyone, I'm recording this as I'm driving to work. Just making sure I can get out safely. Hold on. Today I'm going to be talking about my personal testimony. Almost crashed. We're good. I don't know how different my testimony is. I guess maybe I've just never heard anyone with the same one. You know, a lot of people, they talk about, it's going to be kind of emotional, so just letting you know that in advance. I never really told anyone the full story. Let me just say why I'm saying this first. How about this? I've never told anyone the full story. And I feel like God is calling me He's been calling me, and I haven't been responding, to actually preach it. I've been pretty embarrassed, and I've been, afraid of sharing my story. I've thought up of several reasons why I shouldn't, and I'm just going to go ahead and tell you. And you know what? Whatever comes out, whatever comes out. So I'm just gonna start from the breaking point. At one point, I was afraid of dying, which is not uncommon. But that was ever since before that point, I was kind of with God. Not really. I was just, in the motions, opening my Bible every now and then. This is what really set everything off, though. I remember the night before, I started getting really scared. I started getting almost an anxiety or panic attack. I don't know what it was. A fear attack, if anything. That's what it felt like. Maybe this better right here. Yeah. And so what happened, right before it happened, I said, God, if it's your will to not let this happen, then don't let it happen. And, I'm actually happy it did. But what happened was I think I got near hopelessness. I got so scared. And I broke down, and I just couldn't stop shaking. I was crying. I couldn't stop shaking. It just complete, utter fear and virtual hopelessness. I think hopelessness. And my mom was trying to comfort me, but I was in her arms, but I didn't feel anything. I was 16 at the time. I didn't feel her. I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel comforted. I felt nothing but fear and hopelessness. And that was my breaking point. I think that fear of dying was always accompanied me for many years beforehand, ever since I was younger. 9, 8 years old, I remember thinking about it and then shuddering at the thought. So that led to there was a lot of underlying problems and underlying things that happened in my life. That fear of death was the catalyst to what I'm about to explain. This car's being dumb. But it wasn't the main problem, I don't think. So after that, I essentially, like any normal person, I'd imagine, you want to find comfort. So I try to find comfort in God. So I basically read through John one day, and I can explain to you a lot of things what happened. There's a lot of examples, but basically I was losing my mind. I was consumed by fear. To give you perspective, I was stressed, I was anxious, I was depressed all day, every day. This was the beginning of the sophomore year summer. And, from every moment my mind it just didn't stop racing. I didn't stop feeling depressed. I didn't stop feeling anxious, stressed out. From the moment I opened my eyes to the second I went to sleep, I felt pain and I was suffering. And you know what? Every morning I did wake up, I wish it was nighttime again, because I didn't want to be alive. I didn't want to wake up the next morning. I didn't want to face the day because I knew I would suffer. So I just wished it was night so I could rest. Whatever rest I could have. Since that sleep wasn't really much of a sleep at all. It was more like a 20-minute, it felt more like a 20-minute nap, and I woke up again. What else? What should I say? So then I think at one point I did, I was hearing God's voice more in my life, and I started believing, more. I started believing. But, my circumstances didn't really change. Even when I did start to believe. My faith wasn't very strong at all. And I think the fear of death really did leave me pretty soon. Pretty early on. And I think something more major happened. See, when I was younger, I think this is kind of common, I had a stepdad. And I got really attached to him. He was with us for quite a while. I was from like maybe 8 to 12 years old. And I got really attached. And one day he just up and left, So that really broke my heart. And, and that caused me to build like a 10-foot wall around my heart. So I was hurt, So when I hear about the love of God and I hear all these things, it was hard for me to accept them, to receive the message of that God loves you, this and that. So, how do I say this? It was such a confusing time for me, so I apologize. It's kind of hard to explain. But from that point on, it was basically me attempting to accept that message of love, of care, and frankly, me not trying to accept it and wanting to believe it, but thinking it was just too far out, it was too insane. And then I was hearing the voice of God at the same time. What I believed was the voice of God, and I was conflicted. I was torn apart because what I thought I heard with the love, the voice that said, "I'm here," the voice that said, "I love you," the voice that said, "Trust in me, I'm here and I'll protect you. That you don't have to be afraid." That was hard to accept, guys. That was hard to accept because I was afraid of getting hurt again. I was afraid of opening my heart, of loving the same way I used to love with my stepdad. And that that scarred me, man. So then, I'll name some events that happened in between, I mean, at one point, I've had a few breaking points. One more recent, I think I've leveled out as in recent, like a year. I think that's when things really felt solid for me after like a year. I think, yeah, about a year. But I think the summer of sophomore year was probably the worst summer of my life. Yeah, again, I explained, the sleeping problems and the anxiety and the depression. At one point, I was outside and I was talking to my mom, and then she was talking about like what was wrong with me, this and that, and I yelled in her face like I just want to put a bullet in my head. I was kind of going crazy. I walked over to the house, and because we were in at the house, and I put like 2 good shots into the side of the house. And it's like, it was a mobile home, so it was wood, so I messed up my hand pretty hard. I didn't break it, but it was good. And then, that day I just ended up, I was just on my knees in like the dirt, dude, crying out to God, like, why is this happening to me? And I couldn't accept his message. It was too much love, too much care, too much fearlessness and courage that it was too much for my hurt heart to accept. So, I'm sorry I can't give you a more exact way, because I didn't have my mind straight on me, guys, and even in retrospect, it's so hard to tell what exactly happened. But at one point, guys, through every interaction with God, through every word spoken, through everything that I went through, every fear, every pain, all the suffering I've encountered, all the restless days and nights that I've spent, worried, anxious, depressed, stressed out, suicidal at one point, I accepted it. I accepted the message that God loves me, that God cares for me, that He died on the cross for me. But really, not just like I believed it before, but it's like I didn't receive it. So I received the message of God's love, His healing for my broken heart. And I'm letting Him transform me every day. Every day I'm letting Him transform me. Well, I stopped for a while, honestly. And, I kind of run away a few times, a lot of times. This is me trying to be obedient to God and hopefully help someone. I want to end with this, guys. I know what it's like to be depressed. I know what it's like to be anxious. I know what it's like to be afraid. I know what it's like to doubt every day of your life. I know what pain feels like. I may not have suffered like other people have suffered. Maybe I didn't have a good reason. Maybe I was just being a baby. I don't know. But guys, I know what pain is. I know what anxiety is. I know what depression is. I know what worry is. I know these things. Because for 2 years they called my spirit their home. And I'm telling you, everyone that's depressed right now, all those people that have suffered the same things I've suffered, for different reasons, I'm letting you know right now that you got to receive that you are not alone. No one is alone. No matter what fear, no matter what anxiety that troubles you, no matter what worry plagues your life, it doesn't matter. You are loved. You are cared for. You are not alone. And I know these things. I've been in the darkness of the tunnels, guys. I've been there. And although I can't give you great examples, because honestly, I was out of my mind. I couldn't think straight, so I don't remember a lot. I just remember the pain. I'm just letting you know right now, there's no one that loves you more than God. You are not alone. You are loved. You are cared for. And if you trust in His strength, you trust in His power, you trust in His love, you trust in God, that He has a plan, a purpose, and that there's a reason for you being where you are right now, then nothing is impossible for you, guys. And when you receive His healing, guys, receive His healing, and you'll be made whole. Guys, if God did not heal me, I would not be here today. So take it from me. Take it from countless others. It's true. It's true. I apologize that I don't have a better testimony than just emotional nonsense, what it seems to be. But that's all I got, guys. And that's all God gave me. And I know these things. You're not alone.